All right, here we are. October 5th, Coast to Coast Combat Hour. Ed Carbajal, as always, with Matthew Hawkins. This podcast is brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Make sure you check out AllAccessMMA.com for your mixed martial arts news. This week, I got to speak to, before we move forward with the news that we're going to talk about, I got to speak with Monica Franco from Invicta FC. Who talked to me about her fighting through COVID when she was supposed to be on the Invicta FC 44 pay-per-view and fights that she potentially wants to have. So if you want to check that interview out, it'll be on the audio portion of this. It'll be after Matt and I's portion. And folks watching this on the YouTube channel, the Blogboard Jungle YouTube channel, you can check the description below and skip right ahead over to that if you like, because I already have the link on there. That interview is already live on the YouTube channel. So Matt, it's we got some bad news out of your favorite sport this week.
Yeah. Not my favorite sport, but one I do enjoy. The sad news is, we're starting the show off with rest in peace to Justin Thornton, who passed away from injuries that he sustained in a bare knuckle fighting championship event on August 20th. A fight, mismatch fight he probably should not have been in. He was knocked out, and the injuries that he suffered had nothing, or I shouldn't say have nothing to do, but the injuries were a result of how he landed on the canvas. Just for visual, for maybe someone who hadn't seen it. So like when we see a lot of guys get knocked out, they kind of go down flat like a board. They hit the mat. In this one, while falling down, he curled into kind of a C shape of his body, and then when he hit the mat, his forehead basically it did hit the canvas, which apparently led to some spinal injury, some partial paralyzation, and obviously the issues that eventually led to, I guess, him getting pneumonia in the hospital. So it's sad.
Yeah, it sucks.
It sucks. So that's why you got to be careful. Especially me, I got to be careful how I try to explain the way I see it, because obviously
Is that the one you were at?
No. I was
Oh, okay.
watching this when the knockout happened on TV. It was one where I actually paused and I said, "Oh, shit," like that guy's in bad shape. Um, when you've watched as many fights as we have, you tend to pick up
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
You pick up stuff that maybe a more casual fan doesn't notice, but when I saw it, my immediate thought was that guy's not in good shape. Now I hadn't heard much about it for a couple weeks, so it had slipped my mind. Um, but with that being said, I'm seeing a lot of talk. The initial quick MMA fan reaction was, "Let's ban bare knuckle fighting. Let's let's bare knuckle fighting's garbage. All they do is have a bunch of old men fighting who have been knocked out a million times, yada yada." And while there might be some truth to that, um, the injuries he sustained were not as a result of being hit with a bare knuckle punch. He was knocked out, but we've seen multiple people knocked out and face first into the canvas in kickboxing, boxing, MMA, uh, any kind of standing karate. We saw it in the Olympics. The guy got knocked out cold. He ended up winning the damn gold medal, and I think it was
Don't get me
Taekwondo,
started on that.
or whatever it was. It's okay. But that's the point. Like, there's brutal knockouts are happening in all these sports. In this case, it
Check out
was
my news later for my thoughts on that.
yeah. So to me, the result was him falling, hitting the mat. I'm not sure how his age plays a role in that. I think he was 38 years old, 36 years old. So in the world of combat sports, his age wasn't necessarily over the top with what we're seeing these days. I also see, and Nolan King, who we massively respect, interviewed Mike Mazzulli, the head of one of your favorite commissions, the Mohegan Sun Athletic Commission. And I see in his comments that he's saying how it needs to come to an end. Bare knuckle fighting needs to stop using washed up mixed martial arts and kickboxers and boxers to compete. In less than a year ago, Mike Mazzulli sanctioned Melvin Manhoff to fight.
I think you're misreading. You're reading the quote without reading the article, because that's not what he was saying.
Isn't he okay? Then maybe you can correct me. But isn't he saying things need to change, and bare knuckle boxing needs to do a better job of who they allow to fight?
Yeah, and they so he's saying that the commissions, not just bare knuckle boxing, because not for nothing, you and I both know the promoters are kind of just, I mean, and the commissions.
Mhm.
Everyone's looking for their money grab to hold these events. But the I'll read the statement, and this is from Nolan King's article.
Mhm.
Concerning factors that many commissions do not require any imaging study, CT scan, or MRI scan in a sport where individuals are at risk of acute and chronic head injuries. And their findings have found that the places that are holding these bare knuckle events, they're kind of just doing it passively to the point that it's probably not even being done. And that's what he's asking for. That's what has to stop. They have to do their due diligence. And that
What does his brain scan have to do with how he fell to the floor?
what the fuck kind of question is that?
No, I mean because the same guy who's criticizing other commissions licensed Melvin Manhoff to fight Corey Anderson in a main event within the last year. No,
But so he's taking into account this particular fighter's history with the amount of losses and the amount of damage he's done.
uh-huh.
They didn't do their due diligence in looking into it. I mean, they just looked to license. I mean, even right now, we're talking about Nolan King's article. They're gonna have what's his name, who's like got 13 losses or something like that in their next event, and it's just like, okay, you guys are hyping up these events, but you have to make sure these fighters are ready to go.
Yeah,
And
but
and and,
yeah,
and late
okay.
30s, late 30s is not it's prime. Yeah, it's towards the end of your prime.
S-
Fighting is a young man's sport. Late 30s is definitely, that's when you should start them for combat sports.
mhm.
And I'm an old fucking man already saying this. I'm way past my 30s, but that's definitely towards the end. You got to start thinking about doing other things when you're in your late 30s in
Do
combat
you,
sports.
do you think we'll have okay? Well, all I ask is that the fans who are saying that BKFC should be held liable for having this guy in the ring. Andrei Arlovsky is one of the poster boys for being sent astro sailing in his career. He co-main events UFC in 2 weeks. If he somehow now the Fedor knockout, he went face first down on the mat. If his head tilts another 30 degrees down and we have a tragedy, do we talk about then banning UFC because of the way he fell to the floor? They've signed Greg Hardy, a knockout artist, to now fight 44-year-old Oleanek. If
Mm-hmm.
Oleanek gets beat into oblivion and tragedy were to strike, do we blame the UFC? And I mean, I know we will blame the UFC, but when we talk about banning the UFC, we've talked about the possibility of death in these sports for a long, long time. And we've
Yeah,
always kind of agreed that like the DDT basically would be
yeah.
kind of how it would happen. And that's basically what happened in this fight. I
But no
don't
one can control how someone falls. You know what I
but
mean?
and
So
that but I guess that's my point. Like if Kleckler, the opponent, who's 11-1 in MMA, if he would have been the one knocked out and who passed away as a result of the injury, would we be talking about BKFC regulating their sport better? Or would we be talking about banning BKFC because one of their fighters died?
I mean, you could always ask what if, but that's not what happened.
Well, yeah, but that's every even Mazzulli's going what if because he's looking for the future too. Maybe
Well,
nobody's
yeah,
going
I
to
mean
die for
that's
another.
so, but that's the thing. I mean that towards the end of this statement, it's on the Nolan King's article, the PDF. You can read the full statement
Mm,
for
I
for
read
uh
it, so maybe I didn't pick up the end, but it seems to me like he's not bad mouthing MMA and stuff. He's bad
so
mouthing
they
BKFC in
actually
it.
they actually formed a committee to examine and make suggestions for bare knuckle boxing when they had their conference this year. So
Mhm.
it's not like they're not trying to ban it, but they're definitely saying the commissions where the states that are holding where this sport can be held, they need to not just rush to book fights so fast without doing their research on the guys that they're licensing, because maybe, I mean, it's unfortunate. It sucks to say, because I mean, the other side of it is too, and I know a couple other folks had this opinion. You don't somebody like the whole Evander Holyfield thing.
Mhm.
You can His own family didn't want him to do his match, but he still did it because he wanted to do it.
Mhm.
So these athletes, you're never gonna have them talk themselves out of doing something, especially a combat sport athlete. So I mean, I think that's where it is, and it's almost silly when you talk about trying to regulate violence, because at the end of the day, you know what I mean.
That,
That's what it
that's
is.
that's that's a plenty valid point. I guess
Yeah.
my thing is with Mazzulli is again the Manhoff thing. Like we're talking, if he's worried about the safety of fighters, anybody looking at Melvin Manhoff versus Corey Anderson, what's Manhoff, 45, 46 now? The guy's been knocked out like 18 times in his
Yeah.
career. So like to me, it's like the wrong guy saying that.
Yeah,
Like,
but
and we're gonna end up with talking about his commission and his judges here shortly
mm,
too. So
yeah.
I don't. Mike Mazzulli's kind of like, okay, bud, like I don't. You don't bring
Well,
much
yeah,
to the
that's
table.
actually a good way to segue away from this, and so we might as well talk about Bellator 267's main event. Actually, while we move into that, so the we host this podcast on Anchor, and Spotify owns Anchor. They've added a new feature, so if you listen to this podcast on Spotify, I'm going to put a poll in it, and I would like folks that listen on Spotify to sound off because, I mean, I already know where Matt stands on this, but who do you think won the main event of Bellator 267 between Douglas Lima and Michael Venom Page? Because I disagreed with the decision. I know Matt disagreed with this because we were literally talking immediately after we started messing each other. So I'll post the poll, and if you listen on Spotify, put it up. We'll read the results on next week's episode, but we might as well get into it, Matt. Like, what the fuck?
Well, let me just start off by saying that I don't necessarily consider this a robbery because I think that that's too strong of a term for
Mhm.
what we saw here. I believe it was a fairly close fight. I just don't understand the judging criteria at all because without rewatching the fight, because God bless you if you can sit through that for a second time. I mean I shouldn't say that. It had its moments,
Yeah,
but
it was fun. I liked it.
it should have been 5 rounds. Bellator needs to get off the damn, you know, they need to get caught up with
Shout
that.
out to Keith Schillen who stomps his foot every time at every Bellator event out here in the Northeast.
Yeah.
He actually, I feel bad because I broke his balls a little bit about it. He was like, "All right, I'll stop asking about it," but maybe he needs to start asking about it
Yeah,
again.
and I'm not even saying every fight needs to be 3 rounds, but you need or 5 rounds, but you should pick and choose in a fight like this, where the first fight was 5 rounds, even though this fight should have been also. But so I guess the way I look at it, and you can tell me if you saw it differently. I saw the first round where MVP came out, did some damage, not much, but he did in theory maybe drop Lima.
Mhm.
It looked like he dropped him to me, although John McCarthy kept telling me he didn't drop him. So that left me a little bit confused.
Not gonna
Again, I was
comment.
watching on my phone, so
Yeah,
Um,
I wish they
then
had different audio options for the Showtime
like
app.
Snoopcast or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
I'd rather listen to Snoop.
So Lima came out, was a little bit more the aggressor in the beginning, or not Lima, I'm sorry. Page came out, was the aggressor early, did a little bit of damage. About halfway through the round, Lima took him down. Didn't do a whole lot of damage, but controlled from the top for the rest of the round.
Mhm.
Fair, fair. I mean, pretty. And the judges in I believe all three cases gave the first round to Lima. Okay, cool. Second round, MVP comes out, in my mind, controls basically the whole round. Really drops him at least one time, maybe a second. Outstrikes him. Lima doesn't even try a takedown, I don't recall, and basically just kind of slow round. But MVP does, but in my opinion, by far more damage. Wins the
Mhm.
second round. Third round, guys come out kind of even striking back and forth. I don't recall anything major on the feet. About halfway through the round again, maybe a little less, minute and a half left in the fight. Lima gets the takedown. This time does much more damage than they did in the first round. But essentially, to me, they were kind of a mirror of each other, the first and the third round. Uh, I give that round to Lima. Judges 2 out of 3, I believe, decided that no, MVP won the third round. So I just don't understand the consistency. When they start reading off the names, Cologne and Douglas Crosby, it always seems to be the case.
Mhm.
You pointed out in our conversations that that's the international commission that they bring from Mohegan Sun and our boy Mike Mazzulli. He brings his crew to London, to Ireland, to you know Bulgaria, wherever the heck they decide to show up,
Mhm.
and that's who runs the show, and that's their judges that they bring with them. Just seems like it's always the same three judges. You cover the events in Mohegan Sun. How many of those events? If you've covered 25 Bellator events, let's just say a number. How many of those would you say Douglas Crosby was a judge at?
I mean, I feel like he was definitely at the last few that I was there for pre-COVID because I haven't been there.
Mhm.
Obviously, I wasn't there through all of COVID, but he's definitely usually there, and I can usually. I mean, sometimes he surprised me with some of where I'm like, oh, okay, like I've agreed with some of his scoring, but like this one, I mean, and again, this is my opinion. I just got because of what I know about him. I feel like and I always reference his two appearances on Chael Sonnen's podcast, where I don't know if he was drunk or high or just being a dick because he enjoyed being a dick. But when Chael Sonnen pressed him and asked about the type of training and what do you have to go through to become a judge, he never answered the question. There's still never answered two appearances and didn't answer the fucking question. But I just felt that was just him. Let me score for MVP, just to fuck with everybody out there. That you know what I mean? Because if and I'm telling you, if you listen to the guy, listen to those two episodes, do a search for it, because articles were written about it. Because even Chael got into it with him in the first appearance. Um, yeah, I just got the vibe that I'm like, yo, this guy likes to fucking aggravate people, and just he gets off on making people pissed off. And I just when I heard that score, when I heard Doug Crosby 29-28, whatever it was, I was just like, of course you did, of course you did, because it's gonna people, because people are people are gonna, it's a questionable fight to call again with everything you said, with Lima on top and his top control. That he did score a knockdown of his own. I was in round three. uh the multiple takedowns, the lay and pray defense of MVP. Because there's at one point, I think it was in round two, where he looks at the ref to kind of like, hey, stand us up, because he's got nothing outside of holding on to Lima. With not for nothing, shout out to MVP and his grip strength. It looked like Lima had trouble even in the later rounds to getting his hands free when he was controlling him just by holding his wrist. Usually, guys can just, when somebody grabs your wrist, if you angle out and go out through the exit point of where they're grabbing you, and you're sweaty. When you're sweaty, that's easy to do. And Lima, if you rewatch it, Lima was trying to do that, and MVP wasn't easily letting go. So he must have some serious grip strength. But I don't, because I don't want to take it. I'm not trying to knock him for his win, but I definitely want to knock those scores, because I just feel like that was more to be a an asshole to the fans, and like kind of pour some salt on us to see who reacts, so he can sit at home and say, look at what I did. You know what I mean? And then here's the other thing too, and I don't know because I don't know if you saw, I put it out on Twitter this morning. Every Tuesday after an event, that if it's on Friday, like if they did a Saturday event, they would update the rankings on Wednesday. But today, that Bellator MMA updated their rankings, and in their men's pound for pound, Michael Page is now newly inserted in it, and I'm just like, I don't know if he's pound for pound, like,
No,
yeah,
no, 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 no. And your take on Crosby's obviously your own opinion. Nothing
yeah,
that you would know anything, but we are talking about a judge who has been investigated for corruption.
yeah.
Uh, so it's not as if we're going after somebody who's never faced some scrutiny for his decision making as far as fights he would judge and how he would judge them and who he
And
would
Jaron
score them.
Villel was refereeing matches at that thing too. That I was already like, I'm surprised nobody died. I shouldn't say died, but you know what I
No,
mean.
no, that's terrible.
Like
But yeah,
I'm just like, Jaron Villel was there refing, and I was waiting for like odd like things to happen. I mean, shockingly, nothing did with the matches he ref. I was like, okay, thank God. Whew. you
yeah.
know, but
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't a robbery. It was just weird. It was the whole vibe was weird. And like you said, I when and this is gonna go after the commission a little bit, and even maybe Bellator. But when you have a commission that it's all kind of an inside job a little bit. I know that's all the commissions, but it just I don't know. I again, Mazzulli's out here talking about fighter safety and stuff, but he's bringing in corrupt judges and doing his thing. So I guess that's
I mean,
why.
that's a good
But
question to ask. Is like, okay, I mean, if the promotion has to go by whatever the commission does, which is usually how Scott Coker responds when you ask him. If you ask him anything about officiating, he's like, we go by whatever the commission. Okay, in the state that we're in. Okay, so if then what is the commission's selection process, especially like? I don't know, because you know what? It's not something we're ever going to get rid of, though. Because if you look at the whole Adelaide Bird situation, and it's not something. There's definitely some sort of good old boy network going on in the fight business, and it's always been there. I mean, who are we kidding, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I think the way to question it would be, Mr. Mazzulli, if you want to hold other commissions accountable for their actions, then how do you explain bringing in a judge who has known corruption?
hmm,
Like you really, although one has to do with health and one not so much, you're still talking about the careers of these fighters,
hmm.
and it's not picking on anybody. But the facts are, you're bringing in a judge who was seen to be corrupt, and it has that image of being corrupt, and has an image of a bad reputation
Hmm.
from, like you said on his podcast. So I don't know. I mean, we feel like the whole show's been kind of negative, but it just I guess that's just kind
It's
of.
Trent Rensmith. We should get Trent from.
Jeez. Yeah, no, I'm moving on if that day happens. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. But anyways,
But you know what? I mean, I don't understand how, because that was in London, and obviously MMA is popular, so like I mean, and who regulates Cage Warriors and stuff? Like why aren't they going to, you know what I mean? Like why isn't, I just don't get, like, because I know the UFC also self regulates when they go overseas. I don't understand. I mean, that's something I should probably
why
look into. Like why is there no, why do we have to bring, if we have the fucking Coast to Coast Combat Hour fight promotion, why do we have to bring our own judges with us when we go overseas? If you guys have the sport there, and I don't know what the rules and regs are. That's probably something that uh Eric McGracken probably could answer better I'm actually going to ask him that. I'll send him this clip and ask him, or tag him, put this clip up, because I mean, Jesus, it's funny. Ever since I spoke to him, so many things have happened that I'm just
Jesus,
like,
no
man, that's
doubt.
a question for Eric McCracken, combat sports law. So
Yeah, no, I had the same question. Is there no commission in the UK? Do they not have any kind of sport commission? Is it so
yeah, because
corrupt over there that the Bellator doesn't trust them? Like, why, or UFC doesn't trust? I mean, the UFC is a gigantic conglomerate, so I can kind of understand them being able to ship everything. But we got Bellator. Why if there's not three good judges in London? Like, we have to, during a pandemic, we got to fly three American judges. I believe they were all three
yeah,
American
you can
judges. We got
get
to fly them
like
across the friggin' ocean to judge this event. We can't. There's nobody else.
mm,
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm delusional, but that just seems weird to me. And I don't. It just seems weird that you have the same judges. It always is the same thing.
yeah.
And I mean, we always talk about it. We always joke about it. But when we hear certain names, you sit there and you go, uh oh,
No, yeah, there's a
uh
lot of
oh.
names that have a lot of reputations, and I know I'm not the only one. I mean, especially like when it comes to certain refs, and I mean the Doug Crosby thing. I think he's made himself, and it again. My opinion is he knows about this. Like he knows that this has gotten attention on him, and it's almost like he enjoys it. I feel
Yeah.
like and that's why I feel like I mean, I know it again. I'm just being a conspiracy. Maybe I've been locked inside too long from the fucking pandemic or whatever. But as soon as I heard his name, I was like, he's gonna go the other way just to fuck us all. So
With that said, I'm not sure exactly where Douglas or Lima's got to deal with now 3 losses in a row.
I know.
Um, so that's a dilemma. Although he's got the trilogy with MVP that's automatically set up, you would
Hmm.
think. MVP, I'm not sure how he can't go in the cage with Amosov. I don't care what they try to. I mean, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
his takedown defense is white belt level, and his ability to get up, he doesn't even try. Like you said, his technique to get up was to try to stall. Um, Basically, 2001.
Like so, like yeah. And if I was a judge, I'd score against that. I'm like, you're not doing anything. Um, uh, the guy on top of you is controlling the fight right now. I'm not standing you. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's definitely a 10-9 for Lima for me, or 10-8 for Lima. You know what I mean? Like
Like,
that's
you shouldn't punish the guy for not landing strikes because the other guy making
holding
it
on for dear
is
life.
making it
Yeah,
stall. Like the guy
like he
holding
would
on
have
for.
gotten carded in Pride for that.
Yeah, you're probably
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Pride might have carded both of them just because the Yakuza wanted their money,
Yeah.
but yeah, exactly. And so I don't know, but just weird. The whole thing was weird. 3 rounds was weird.
It was just a weird weekend overall. Like when you look at that call, that was Friday, and then I did. I mean, we're just briefly. Well, I mean, I know not a lot of people watch it because I did the live results for CFFC 101 on Fight Pass, and the co-main event there is actually might get overturned because of there was a submission victory. I'm sorry, I forget the names of the fighters, but it was a co-main event, and somebody tapped. Well, the fight was stopped because the guy's hands were trapped because he was trying to defend the guillotine choke, but he was doing everything right. He was actually very spry and mobile. But when the referee looked in them for some reason, and I think it was just kind of like a weird shell shock because the fight before that had a guillotine submission that was stopped a little too late. So I feel like the guys were just kind of like walking on eggshells, like, oh my God, let's wake up. And they saw the very same thing kind of replay in front of them, and the referee stopped it, and they gave the submission, technical submission victory to the opponent. But like as soon as the fight was stopped, and the guy's hands were free, he slams his hands on the mat. He's like, "What are you doing? I'm not out." And it was just like a weird. Even John Morgan, who he does commentary for them, but he's also MMA junkie. He said he was going to look into it, and I know that was the last update that I heard was that the losing team is definitely going to appeal it and try to get it overturned, or at least turn to a no contest. So that happened early Saturday, and then Saturday night. I know we briefly just talk about it before we get into Wilder Fury 3. The no contest headbutt from the UFC event with Kevin Holland and
Dawkins.
yeah. And so like that was, I mean, that seemed easier to do, but it's just like a weird weekend of like odd judging and weird things happening in fights. I mean,
Yeah, no, that and the weird thing about the Holland Dawkins fight is that I don't even think that was handled correctly.
yeah,
Like
there was like, yeah, they're like chattering about it for a while.
yeah, so you had Holland get knocked out. So here we're gonna talk about fighter safety again. So Holland was basically knocked out cold with a headbutt, landed
Mm-hmm.
on the mat and woke up when he landed on the mat. They're scheduled for a rematch in 38 days.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking you might need more than a month and a week to recover from being knocked out cold with a headbutt. But you know, I'm not in control of fighter safety.
Yeah.
But getting back to that, yeah, the referee acknowledged at the time of the headbutt that there was an accidental headbutt. Then the fight continued for it's hard to say exactly how much time. I can't remember the time, but it
Who knows
continued
with
for
the ESPN Plus cards?
it continued for a minute, give or take, before a submission choke, a guillotine. No, it was a rear naked choke was eventually locked in and Holland tapped. They at that point then went to the replay and overturned it to a no contest. I don't believe that that's necessarily how it's supposed to happen. I think they're supposed to pause the fight immediately when they believe that happens, but I might be wrong. I mean, I don't, but it just seems like a weird thing because had Holland, if Holland had knocked out Dawkins in 30 seconds later instead of getting choked out, would they have went back and called it a no contest? It was
Yeah.
still an accidental headbutt. So it just I know this we're still trying to figure out how this instant replay stuff works because I know I sure as hell don't know how it works.
Especially, well, it's new. What did they start doing that in 2018, 2019? So that has been around that long.
It hasn't been around that long, but you would think in 3.5 years we might have a
But it's
process.
yeah. But the reason why we're confused is because every time, I mean, back before COVID, when they're traveling from state to state, you had to be told at the start of the broadcast they're using the old unified rules or using the
That's
new
true.
unified rules. Instant replay is a thing, So that's why it's confusing for us. But the thing about, I mean, going back to safety, the thing that the edge that the UFC has when it comes to fighter safety and doing due diligence or whatever, all the stuff that Mazzulli says commission should do, is that the UFC does that, and they have their own doctors to do it if they feel like someone else isn't doing, if the state that they're in isn't doing their due diligence. Look at the Aljamain Sterling situation with Peter Yan. People shitting on Aljamain Sterling as if he's the one pulling out, but it's doctors saying that his neck isn't ready for him to be fighting so soon, still after his neck surgery. So it's not even him pulling out. It's the doctors involved in checking the fighter's health to to say yes they can move forward and no they can't. And I mean, neck surgery is a pretty major thing, so it's better to be safe than sorry there. But I don't know, man. 38 days for that type of finish. I mean, I guess him pulling over carjackers and holding them for the cops to come probably helps make a decision to move
Yeah, I
forward
mean,
there.
I'm not. Yeah, and I want to see the rematch. I'm not. And I like Holland,
Yeah,
Kevin Holland, so I'm not trying to like badmouth that. I just wonder like where we're gonna draw the line. Like if
yeah,
something happens to Kevin Holland in his next fight, are we gonna look back and go, "Wow, they let him fight 38 days after being knocked out with a headbutt"? Like
yeah.
I feel like you can't be always a Monday morning quarterback. Like,
No,
and I understand being
but shout out to
proactive.
Kevin Holland too for I mean, he handled that like a champ. Even afterwards at the post fight press conference, he even though they called no contest, he was like, as far as I'm concerned, I lost. He was just like, what did he say? Street rules, and he referenced his kung fu training. He was like, if it was in the streets, that would have been good to go and get game over for me. So, which is more reason why he wants to rematch. But I mean, listen, when funny things like that happen, they definitely that's one thing the UFC I'll say does like a great job. When that happened with the was it Poirier Alvarez or the funny stoppages, and when people want to see a fight again, they usually do run it back. I forget who. I'm pretty sure it was Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah,
Yeah, with that weird stoppage that they did it again. But that's one thing the UFC does good. So I mean, I think that's warranted. I thought the no contest was warranted. Like you said, the discussion maybe maybe was a little funny, but
it got to the right
live
solution at
TV,
the end.
folks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they came to the right conclusion at the end. It would be nice if we had a cleaner way of knowing
Yeah.
what was going on. But
Yeah.
where we mentioned rematches, we've been talking about people who got beaten badly. That brings us to Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3. Um, First fight draw, second fight, seventh round TKO due to corner stoppage, and that sets us up for this third bout between two of the top, you know, four heavyweight boxers.
You know what's funny about this match is like when because I was really looking forward to Fury Joshua when that was supposed to be a thing, and then Bob Arum and Top Rank, and they did whatever they did with the legal side, that stuff that they can do to get this rematch to happen because of whatever contracts existed before. So it's happening, and I was upset because we didn't get Joshua Fury, but then Joshua lost to Alexander Usyk. So I don't even know if you could sell me a Fury Joshua or Fury Wilder now, because the way that it's been happening with heavyweight boxing. The closer we got, now that it's finally here, I'm actually really looking forward to this. Like, as much as I was the last one, because if you look at video game rules, best two out of three, right? Like,
Mhm.
you have to win two fights to really say you beat a guy when you have this type of rivalry. So as you mentioned the draw, and you mentioned the Fury's victory from the last one, so this one is that I'm actually excited because now both guys really know each other. They know what to expect, and we got to see who does what different. Like, maybe Wilder won't wear an Iron Man suit when he walks into the arena this time.
He sounds like he's got something up his
Okay,
sleeve.
I really hope he doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
come on, dude, come on.
Yeah, that was one of his weak excuses following his last loss, is that he was drained energy wise from wearing his uniform into the ring. For those that didn't know, yeah, no, I mean it's a heavyweight world championship boxing match, and
Yep.
in my world, Tyson Fury's the world heavyweight boxing champion, and the best heavyweight in the world, and Deontay Wilder is kind of the Mike Tyson of this era without the hoopla so much. Maybe I mean, I'm a big power puncher.
Hmm.
I just after the first fight was obviously the first fight was basically Fury dominating, and then he got dropped towards the end. I think he got dropped twice in the fight actually, which evened out the cards and ended up in a draw. I think. Well, I thought Fury still won the first fight. Second fight, it looked to me like it was a schooling. You had
Hmm.
Fury basically dominated from start to finish, to the point where the corner had to stop the fight. I don't, barring Wilder coming out with some super game plan that we've never really known him to have, as far as anything beyond going in and just trying to uh, really hurt your opponent. I don't know what, I don't see how he can win this fight. I feel like unless Fury takes it off, or it's the world of boxing and they want to see Fury Wilder 4. Um, we'll get Adelaide Bird, Douglas Crosby, and Sal
Oh my
D'Amato will
God,
be like
yeah.
3.
Yeah.
So that I don't know, but it's a heavyweight world championship fight. When you got a puncher like Wilder and you've got the character like Fury, it makes for a really cool storyline. But I mean, I gotta think Fury wins the fight. It would be hard for me to pick Wilder to win. The odds aren't that extreme right now. It looks like Fury's about almost a 3-1 favorite, whereas Wilder's about a 2-1 underdog. Not crazy odds. I would have thought they would have been a little bit more
Hmm.
stretched out, especially on the underdog side for Wilder.
Hmm.
But but
That's funny you
it's
mentioned. I haven't even looked at odds yet. I'm glad you mentioned them.
Yeah, I mean, minus 280 for Fury seems like smart money to me. But again, you got to be kind of a big gambler to, you're basically risking $300 to try to win 100. So unless you're throwing down some coin, you're not really making a whole lot on him. But I just don't see how he could lose this fight, barring a, I mean, he could always get knocked out real
That's
quick.
what I was
But
gonna say. Like that's the intrigue, especially with Wilder. And you look again looking at the first fight. He's got that power, and he's got that puncher's chance, more than a puncher's chance, I would say, because again they've experienced each other already. So like he knows what to expect based on the first two times, and so does Fury. The thing about that is if you talk about the pure boxer, the one that's a trained boxer, student of the sweet science, it's Tyson Fury, and that's where he has more options to bring something different. Whereas Wilder is going to probably swing for the fences until he can't swing anymore, unless he's got something new up his sleeve too. But he only needs one or two of those punches to land
mhm.
to make things get
No,
people on their feet.
yeah, we had kind of said that before the last fight. I just I hope that Wilder does come out and shows a more composed, you know, maybe not more composed, I don't know what the word would be, but more of a scientific attack to the fight. It would be cool to see that he's evolved and learned something from that last fight, because then that would add intrigue to the fight. If we come in here and we just see some wild haymakers, and by the end of the first round Wilder's already got a busted up nose from being jabbed 26 times,
Hmm.
then we realize that there wasn't a whole lot there, and then the punching mystique ends after a few of these losses.
Yeah,
Um, so, but the boxing, Wilder winning's probably the thing to happen. You
yeah,
know, but I think Fury has just he's
and
proven
I
to be just dangerous.
yeah, and I have to say too, it's really nice to have some real boxing, like a true boxing event to look forward to after going through months of the Triller, Paul, Logan, Holyfield belt, like these weird carnival events that are using boxing rules. People say it's bringing more eyeballs to boxing. Maybe it is, but hopefully this showing kind of reminds fans, like, okay, this is the kings, sport of kings, or whatever. I forget what the term is, but you know what I mean. Like, this is the thing. This is the original combat sport that everybody grew up watching, and this is what gets people excited for a fight night. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that's what this pay-per-view does this weekend.
And I'm sure it'll sell a ton of pay-per-views. It's going to be great for the promoters. I hope the fans, we get a good fight out of it. And I think no matter what, I don't think anybody's going to feel like they didn't get their money's worth. I think you're either seeing somebody get knocked out, or you're seeing two guys basically go toe to toe for,
Yeah,
10, 12 rounds like we
yeah.
did in the first
I
fight.
have a feeling they're both going to leave it all out there too.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that we it all on paper this is set up to be another good
Hmm.
boxing match, but it's just you never know. So I mean, but I I think, the main thing is that we got a huge boxing match, like you say. We don't have some rap battle tied to it, or we don't have, some celebrity,
Yeah.
you know,
That's the weekend after.
yeah. No, yeah. Not that I have anything wrong with Big Daddy Kane and KRS-One, but
No, KRS-One, I got a KRS-One story. KRS-One, that's my hero, man, and I love KRS-One. But anyway, I mean,
yeah,
we're about to run out of time, so if you want to take us out, might as well take us out. Oh, but really quick, I mean, we should mention Marina Rodriguez and Mackenzie Dern fighting at the UFC. I mean, that's kind of like a straw weight, you know,
title
contendership.
contender.
Yeah,
Yeah, eliminator for sure. And that should be a good fight. The whole card as a whole is king of the cage level. So,
yeah.
uh, but that main event is definitely one to check out.
Hmm.
Just especially for that in between the boxing and all the other stuff that's inevitably going on in the world of fighting. But yeah, looking forward to this. So check us out. The show on Twitter at Combat Hour, Coast to Coast Combat Hour Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. You can always check us out at allaccessmma.com for our video podcast. You can follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMAHawk21 on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Ed, we'll see who the World Heavyweight Boxing Champion is come next week, and start to look forward to a bunch more MMA action.
Yes, sir. And audio listeners, stay tuned for the Monica Franco interview coming up next.